Okay, in this video we're just going to talk about external flashes and some of the reasons why they may not work on your Lumix camera. And this is something I've been asked a few times by a few different people, and it can be for kind of various different reasons. So we'll just run through all of them, from kind of like the simplest troubleshooting steps to maybe some of the more kind of complex issues that you might be coming across. But the first one is always, make sure the camera battery's got a good charge, make sure the flash has got a good charge. It requires quite a lot of power to be doing flash photography, so always make sure the flash has got a decent set of batteries in and they're fully charged. And then the next thing, obviously, you need to make sure that the flash is in some way compatible with the hot shoe on the camera. So this is a Godox TT350O, and the O signifies that you can use a lot of flashes manually anyway with most cameras, but it sort of signifies that you can do TTL shooting with it. So it might be that you've got some flash incompatibility. A super basic one that I've seen a few times, people putting the flash on back to front, then the pins don't line up. Obviously this is the sensor on the flash, so that needs to be facing the right way, and you ideally want to be looking at the screen. So you can get that into there, and then you should, on the camera, you should just about be able to see it. I don't know how in focus that is, but down here, when you hold the shutter button down, you can see there's no icon down there, but when you get the flash right on, sometimes the screen will light up or it will make a noise. You can see down there now we've got a little flash icon, so that kind of signifies that the flash is plugged in and ready to go. And then the hot shoe part of it, just screw that down firmly so you know it's kind of on and ready. And then when you hit the shutter button, you can see the flash is firing, so we've got a kind of working flash setup there. And then one of the reasons why it may not be firing, so a lot of these modes, they're all in the photo mode because obviously it's all photography based. So the first one, and probably the most kind of basic one, under flash mode, just make sure you've got that switched on into one of the flash modes. If it's on off, obviously you can just fire, nothing's going to happen. So we've got to make sure that that is actually switched into one of the flash settings. So that's our first one, and obviously quite an important one, because without that, nothing's going to happen. It's just not going to kind of recognize that that is actually there. The next one that people kind of fall into the trap of quite often is with the shutter type. So the shutter type, I believe by default, again, it's just in the photo menu with the camera at the bottom under shutter type. I believe by default this is set to auto, unless you switch out of it. But you've got the option for mech, which is mechanical, and then you've got two options for electronic shutter. So what will happen is, if you're on mechanical shutter, it works fine. But then when you switch into the electronic shutter, what you'll find is you're just not going to get that flash fire, and that's the same for the other option. So you can just see we've got nothing there. So like I say, you want that to be set to either mechanical or auto. I just leave that in auto. And then silent mode, which we've covered this actually in another video, so I'll link up to that in the corner. But silent mode, if you've got that switched on, just in short, you'll be able to see that's actually taking pictures. And it just doesn't use the it doesn't use the flash at all, so because it's using the electronic shutter in that mode. So we just switch that off, and then you can see we're back on. So there are a good kind of few reasons that you might find that the camera's actually not working with that. And another one actually can be down to the settings on the camera. Sometimes you can kind of try to do this and it won't actually work, so I'm not 100% if I'll be able to make it do it. But basically, if you make it as sort of as high or as low, I mean basically just really bad exposure, so really underexposed, really overexposed. Sometimes it gets to a point where the flash kind of will come back and say, well, I can't fire a flash that low, or even at sort of 1-to-1, I can't provide enough flash to expose that properly. So there are times where sometimes your exposure in the camera can affect the flash not working. And again, that is really through you know, TTL. Through manual, it should just kind of fire regardless of what you're telling it to do. So yeah, that really covers kind of most of the main ones. And then, you know, you've got things like triggers, but if your triggers aren't linking up, then potentially that can be something between the camera and the trigger, and you can usually test all of that off camera. So if you kind of take the flash off, and then you can switch your trigger on, and then generally, as long as the flash is on, that always signifies that there's a flash ready to fire on it. And then usually on any type of trigger, there's the option to sort of manually fire it. This is just a Godox X Pro. I'll link to all these bits in the description if you want to check any of them out. They're not like, you know, not the most kind of high end bits, but my setup is generally, I've got kind of a few of these, the trigger, and that works just fine for what I want. But yeah, you can just fire off test shots from this. So you can see there that's working, and then in theory, once this is on, like I say, as long as it's on the camera properly, you can see it's firing off those wireless shots. So it's sometimes it's just a case of kind of digging through the menus and just checking and seeing if you need to switch something off, or if something's not connected properly. It happens all the time, you know, just loose connections, or the batteries are kind of gone and you've not noticed. So yeah, hopefully that's been helpful. If it has, give the video a like. If you want to see more videos like this, then please subscribe.